Read the disclaimers, and please use common sense.
Let's start this episode with a confession. While I have made it the main thing I talk about here on YouTube, I can't say that I'm especially nostalgic about Transformers. And that just means I can't think of any stories from my childhood that revolve around Transformers. However, I'm quite pleased to tell you that that's not the case with today's episode, because not only am I nostalgic for its 2012 reboot on Nickelodeon, but I'm also nostalgic for the 1987 cartoon that started it all. And that is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Heroes in a Half Shell, Turtle Power, yeah! And I guess in a weird sort of way, you could actually say that my experience with TMNT is actually the opposite of my experience with Transformers. Like, I have more Transformers toys than I think anyone could be reasonably bothered to count, but I literally don't have any formative childhood memories I could turn into fun stories about how me and my friends got together to watch the latest episodes of the Transformers cartoons airing at the time, nor do I have any ones about me and my brother playing pretend that we were Optimus and Megatron, because I just didn't do those things as a kid. Granted, there was like a one-time exception back in 2009, but that's a story for another time. A future time, in the words of the Beyond Driver. And don't worry, I've already finished scripting it. Pretty sure I'll have it finished before I ever do Tarn. Meanwhile, I've loved TMNT since I was 12, and while I haven't seen every single episode of every cartoon they've ever made, I'm far more familiar with their exploits than I am of those of the bots and cons. I've at least seen one episode of every single cartoon, and I can not only say that I have found things to both love and loathe about every incarnation of TMNT, but I also want to watch more, and in some cases, I want to completely re-watch some of the shows I've already finished, like the 2012 version. And I have a very specific and very fond childhood memory of the Turtles. Memories of me watching the first 4 episodes of the 87 TMNT series with my little brother at a friend's house in his messy basement on VHS. And the fact that I'm so nostalgic for the 87 show is the reason why I've avoided going into a massive tangential rant for 15 minutes about how the silliness somehow ruins the original TMNT show or some stupid crap like that, but the whole practice of trying to prove that your tastes aren't cringeworthy is in and of itself become cringeworthy, especially when it's blatantly obvious that you're overcompensating for the fact that you actually like what you're calling cringeworthy. Granted, you're allowed to see the flaws in what you like and even joke about them.
This can only be the work of ninjas.
How can you tell that from the rope, Professor?
Well, look for yourself. It's made in Japan.
But you should never feel ashamed of liking something that's silly, or people say you shouldn't like anymore because you're grown up now. But enough meandering, onto the actual toys, because for as much as I've loved their antics on the cartoons, they've never really had a shelf presence in my collection. That is until June 2024, when I became the owner of all 4 brothers based on their appearance in the Mutant Mayhem film. So salutations, denizens of the internet, I'm Firebite27, and let us commence our analysis of Leo, Donnie, Raph, and Mikey from the Mutant Mayhem film. I'll talk about Mikey first, because not only was he the first figure in the set that I got, but also because he was my favorite turtle back in the 2012 show. And also, quite frankly, the one that I have the least to say when it comes to discussing design elements. Which makes sense, because Leo and Mikey have always had the most standard builds out of all the turtles throughout all of their incarnations. I mean, I like that he has a darker shade of green for his skin than the rest of the turtles, which helps differentiate him a bit, and maybe Mikey is a bit pudgier than Leo, or maybe his limbs are a bit more gangly to emphasize how he's a goofball. But what I do know is that I feel as though Leo and Mikey are the closest these figures get to feeling like default personas, if you catch my drift. They have so few distinguishers that they just kinda end up being anthropomorphic animals with vague martial arts theming, and that's it. But what Mikey lacks in physical distinguishers in terms of his body shape, he more than makes up for with that head sculpt, because oh my god, it is the cutest thing ever. He just looks so dope derpy and goofy and bug-eyed, and oh my god, I just love his smile. I can definitely see him as the comedian the back of his box describes him as. Especially now thanks to Donatello, who was kind enough to send me a copy of Mikey's demo reel.
And yet it's very easy to blame your parents for your own dysfunction. Particularly if they're boomers. Oh my god! What's to be done with the boomers? Too many opinions, not enough computer literacy.
While Mikey is definitely my favorite of the turtles, his figure is just the one that I have the most trouble talking about. He's just kind of a silly guy, and I appreciate that about him. Now, going from the silliest to the smartest turtle, it's everyone's favorite K-pop loving scientist, Donatello. And unlike Mikey, he's doing a lot more to distinguish himself from the rest of the turtles. While his muscles certainly look more developed than mine did back when I was a teenager, he looks incredibly scrawny next to the other turtles. And out of the four, he's definitely the palest, really selling that whole indoor nerd stereotype. Which of course raises the question that if all four of them have been living underground this entire time, where in the Howabunga have three of them found the melanin they need to develop unique skin colors? Granted, that doesn't raise as many hypothetical questions as Donnie's apparent desire to be a K-pop idol, however, I think he could pull it off. After all, he has 3 color-coordinated backup singers. Look out, ladies, there's a new Bieber-esque teenage heartthrob in town and his name is Donatello. Oh, and both of his non-weapon accessories really play into this. We've got glasses for his nerdy side, and a pair of headphones that are either for his K-pop fanboy side, or for the side of him that gets so absorbed in his music that he accidentally keeps on destroying Master Splinter's favorite mug. That scene always made me think that Donnie was a little bit scatterbrained. And speaking of scatterbrained, before I forget to mention this, it is impossible to get his headphones around his neck without removing his head altogether. Anyways, we go from my second favorite turtle to my third favorite turtle as per the 2012 series, Leonardo. Now, I kinda already shared my thoughts on this design back in Mikey's section, however, let me say it again. I don't think that Leo's the most interesting member of this set. By no means is Leo's design bad. I mean, it still has the same degree of personality as the rest of the toys in this set. While he's built on lean muscle, he's slim, dynamic, and heroic looking, and he's got a shit-eating grin to rival that of Shindan Kurotoda. It feels like he needs to have a bit more beef like Raphael, which is ironic considering that these two almost always seem to have beef with each other. And I feel like I should have more to say about this figure, but I really don't. Of course, I could always be inflammatory and talk about how Leo is somehow the most historically accurate ninja since he wears blue, or how his weapons are the least historically accurate because ninjas didn't use katanas because they were too expensive, and if Master Splinter somehow was sitting on a massive fortune he could use to just buy katana all willy-nilly and also fund Donatello's experimental technology development, then oh my god, Master Splinter is Batman. Maybe the reason I don't find Leo as interesting as the rest of the group is because he's doing that generic cool guy thing of always wielding 2 swords, whoa! It's been done to death, and arguably done to death better by other characters. From here we'll move on to the last and maybe my least favorite figure of the set, Raphael? Or maybe he's my favorite? Honestly, I don't know. It's complicated. Let's unpack it. Firstly, I'll say this. Holy crap, I love this design. Out of the entire team, he has had the biggest glow up since his original design. With each iteration, Raph gains more and more beef, going from just the red one who uses size to being a total behemoth of muscle and beef. And while he's nowhere near as beefy as his Rise of design, thank god, he does strike a nice middle ground between his 2012 design and the Rise of design. In short, he's buff enough to catch your eye when he's next to the other turtles, but not so much so that it looks goofy. Honestly, the way Raph has changed since the original really reminds me of Sonic Boom Knuckles in a good way.
Meme! Approved!
That's not the point I was trying to make, but I'm not opposed to it. However, much like my favorite member of the set, Donatello, this figure actually has some unique problems. All of them are related to his articulation, starting off with the fact that his arms never seem to fully relax. I'll go into why things are this way later, but just know that it makes him look like the bearded expense. And it's only made worse by his weapon storage, which prevents him from fully relaxing his arms even to the degree he was already capable of. Look, I know Raph is the roided up rage turtle of the group, but at the same time, he's cool but rude. Not the chill is nil. And out of the 4, I think I had the most trouble balancing Raphael, and maybe that has something to do with his bigger design having a different center of mass from the rest of them. However, in Raphael's defense, this is not an issue that's unique to him because everyone seems to have trouble standing up at times. Granted, whenever they face planted onto the dusty coffee table that I filmed the review on, this did lead to some unintentional comedy because, well,
Pomni, I have snorted a suitcase full of coke, and I'm starting to feel the effects.
Yeah, they more or less looked like they had snorted comical amounts of Snowflame. Though weirdly, Mikey was the only one who didn't faceplant on me, which canonically explains why he was the only turtle featured in Cartoon All-Stars Unite. Look, the point I'm trying to make is that the figures can be incredibly hard to balance, and sometimes they were even kind enough to demonstrate that while I was trying to film them. So it's not a simple matter of, oh, Raph is heavier than the others, so he has trouble standing. The actual problems lie in the articulation.
Every figure has a ball-jointed head, universal joint at the shoulder, universal joint at the elbow, swivel at the wrist, universal joint at hips and knees, and an ankle swivel.
Okay, so for $10 figures, this is actually really good articulation. The hypothetical benefit to using so many universal joints is that it allows you to supplement a ball joint by not only allowing you to move an arm along a certain axis, but also by rotating that arm on the perpendicular axis to extend its range. However, this only works if the wheel that the perpendicular movement happens on is inside of something that's shaped uniformly, and oh look, it's the bandages and shells. Now, the bandages are supposed to serve a very simple purpose, and that is keeping the joints hidden so the figures remain aesthetically consistent. I think on some level, this is a very admirable goal. This isn't true of robotic figures because they're already very inorganic. However, exposed joints can really ruin the believability of a figure. And part of this set's appeal, to me at least, is just how darn photogenic it is. And with more exposed joints, it just wouldn't be as photogenic. Oh yeah, and remember how I said that Raphael couldn't fully rest his arms? Well, that's because of the shell. Well, that is once again not a problem unique to him because none of the turtles can rest their arms fully at their sides. Raph was just my jumping off point because he has it the worst out of the entire set. Oh right, and the shells mean no backwards movement from the hips or the shoulders. Granted, that's a moot point because they're turtles, obviously they're gonna have a shell. But if you're gonna give me swivels, let me use them, damn it. And also the ankles really should have been ball jointed on these figures. After all, that's basically how we humans compensate for our shifting center of mass. And compensating for that shifting center of mass with just your hips and thighs is impossible. You need ankles. And I doubt using ball joints would have bumped up the production cost that much. It's literally the same parts count. Granted, action figure stands are a great help in bypassing this issue. However, they're kinda weird in that they're the IKEA furniture of action figures. Learning what you need and also how to assemble it are both incredibly frustrating headaches unto themselves. And it really doesn't help that the turtles don't even have standpoint. And it's a feature that unfortunately many Western action figures omit. Look, all I'm saying is that if Hasbro can make this standard procedure on childish charmers like the Earthspark Warrior class, then Playmates has no excuse. But considering the fact that these figures come with a lot of accessories, I'm not sure this is as big of an issue as I'm making it out to be. Each of them comes with a ton of accessories, from slices of pizza, which surprisingly aren't all the same mold. Wow, either Mikey's on a low-carb diet or he's just a real big baby about the crust. Baby versions of the turtles before their mutations, which again, surprisingly aren't the same molds.
Kick the baby! Kick the baby. Kick the baby.
Canisters of mutagen that tell you how responsible the characters are because only Donnie didn't break his. Every turtle gets at least one, if not two copies of their own unique shuriken design. Please stop calling them ninja stars. Also, I don't know if this is just standard procedure for TMNT figures, but they each came with a themed Gunpla runner that held all of their accessories, and those are so cool. Leonardo is not only wielding his traditional pair of katana, he also has a trio of kunai and a short sword that I think is called a tanto. Donnie, in addition to his usual bow staff, gets a San Setsukan and a spear he can use to harass Ace Ventura. No longer content with wrecking just his size anymore, Raphael has this absolutely lethal looking pair of food towel. I said food towel. Food towel! Fuck it, those hook sword thingies that one guy from Avatar used. And a kunai to call his very own. Love the visual storytelling in the molding with all the nicks and chips in the blade. Raph has not been gentle with this thing. And last, but certainly not least, not only does Mikey have his nunchakuka, but he also has a kusarigama and a Wii remote? Or a PlayStation Move controller? Okay, yeah, I know it's technically two microphones chained together, but you cannot tell me that that's not what this looks like. And believe it or not, these figures are secretly compatible with Transformers. Yes, sirree, not only are their feet compatible with Transformers' 5mm peg system, but also their hands are too. The turtles can comfortably hold any gun made for a Transformer, and that also means they can hold any weapon that I've 3D printed for my arsenal, which means I can give them video game weapons, or more realistically what you do, guns.
Shotgun! Oh, but you had it on the way here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, I found a shotgun, and I want the front seat.
Even the baby turtles are 5mm compatible, seemingly for no other reason than allowing some sicko like G-Axis to invent a turtle-powered death ray for Krang and Shredder. And hey, while we're still on the topic of a crossover between the Turtles and the Transformers, I think it would be really cool that if we ever got a follow-up figure to the upcoming TMNT crossover Transformer, that it be a bludgeon/tarn retooled into Shredder.
Your skills are impressive, but they will not save you.
Anyways, before I end this video and go back to my usual shtick of reviewing Transformers, let's do some size comparisons. Here are the turtles next to my last review, Velocitron Speedia 500 Cosmos, my potential next review, Studio Series Bumblebee Movies Shockwave, the only other action figure that really scales with the turtles, my Rider Kick series Kamen Rider Woes, I think that's the version I have, I don't know. The only Transformer I know of that's all the same colors as the turtles, RID 2001 Tow Line, fellow Animated Ninja Transformers Legacy Evolution Animated Universe Prowl, United Cyberverse Chromia, and what size comparison section would be complete without a standard Qtama, standard can of sparkling water, and Broadside. And so, well, do I really need to tell you what I think about these figures? These guys are brilliant, especially for what you're paying. All of these figures cost me about as much as a Voyager class figure, and well, that's incredible for me. Especially when other figures that have only cost $10 have given me far less play value for that money. And most of them are Transformers that are technically 3 toys in one. Meanwhile, the Turtles feel as though they've respected the money that I paid for them far more than most Transformers that I've gotten these days. Honestly, it makes me feel that Hasbro better start watching this back, because if this keeps going on, I might have to go over to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles full time and convince my friends to do the same. And while they're neither based on my favorite interpretation of the Turtles, nor are they must-have figures in their own rights, they are 7.5 out of 10 that hit every point they tried to aim for. Plus, the fact that nearly an entire year has passed since the film was released, you can probably get a better deal on these figures than I did. And not only have they rejuvenated my interest in reviewing toys, but they also make me happy in ways that I can't even describe. And I believe that, my friends, is what they call turtle power. But with that being said, this is Firebite 27 over and out. Cowabunga!